Hey, Webmug World Entertainment, and the much anticipated Daredevil Born Again has finally dropped, at least the first 2 episodes, and this is going to be the review of those 2 episodes for is it good, is it bad, is it meh, is it as dark as they say, is it more of a humor driven one like we hope it isn't. All of that we're going to go over, and we will be talking about the good, the bad, and the downright ugly with this show, because unfortunately there is good, but there is bad, and there is downright ugly, which that's the real unfortunate part. Now, there will be one major spoiler for this, but if you haven't heard it by now, okay, but you have to kind of explain it because it goes into the bad category for the way the story unfolds. Plus, it's just stupid for why they did it. But overall, is it good? Is it bad? Is it dark and gritty like they say? Okay, let's jump into that straight away. No, it's not a super dark, super gritty, super violent show that they said it is. Well, at least in the first 2 episodes, it isn't. Now, that scene that's in the trailer with the compound fracture and stuff when he's breaking the arm, that's the end of the 2nd episode. It seems more violent in the trailer than it actually is. It's kind of like, oh, this is actually quite tame. And that seems to be the way all the stuff is so far. The main thing that seems to be kind of pushing the whole it's mature is F-bombs. And even the majority of them come from crowds. It's not like one individual person having a conversation and drops an F-bomb. It seems to be like during crowds that someone shouts out like an F yeah. And it's kind of like, oh, okay. So that's where they're getting that. There are a couple from people like one-on-one that drop an F-bomb, but there's not that many of them. But in terms of the violence and the true dark and grittiness, yeah, it's really not there. Now, I have heard that later on in the show, it does get darker and grittier and more. There's meant to be a super violent episode. Okay, but for right now, that's not the case. So the good is definitely the characters for the majority and the acting. Of course, Charlie Cox is great in the role of Matt Murdock. He really does shine again this time. Vincent D'Onofrio as Fisk, aka Kingpin, again, great. You know, there's absolutely no argument about him. The wife, Vanessa, I'm not sure how you pronounce the actress's name. She was Superman's mammy in Man of Steel. She's on point as well, even though she's not all that in there. She's more in the first episode than the second, if I remember that way correctly. Bullseye, you know he's in there. He's in the first 15 minutes and then we don't see him again, for now anyway. We don't see Punisher in the first 2 episodes at all. White Tiger, we're introduced to White Tiger. However, we only see the version of White Tiger in the suit in a security camera footage, and it's like, okay, but we do meet him without the costume. The actor who plays him, he's doing fine. Problem is, this shows us how long this thing has actually been sitting on the shelf, because the actor who plays White Tiger actually passed away, but he passed away on Christmas Eve of 2023. So that just shows you how long this thing has actually been sitting on the shelf. Now, we do get some characters who are added into this that aren't all that great. And it's kind of like, oh, you've removed these characters people know and love to introduce these characters that you couldn't care really less about. So Karen Page and Foggy are, of course, in here. And that comes from the backlash from when they said they weren't going to be in it. And in fact, they were going to actually just kill them off screen. And that's why they weren't bringing the actors back. And of course, there was a massive pushback to that. And it was like, what the hell? And they changed their mind. However, and yes, this is where you are going to get that spoiler. So, spoiler, if you haven't known this, you can skip forward of the video or not. But this goes into the bad category. They bring them back just so they can kill Foggy off right away, because that's what happens. Foggy is in this show for about 10 minutes and they kill him off. Bullseye kills him. Karen is in this for all of about 12 to 13 minutes, and she's moved from New York to San Francisco after the death of Foggy, and she's no longer friends with Matt Murdock. That's where you're like, why are you doing that? This doesn't make sense. It's also the case that they've replaced Foggy and Karen with these two new characters called Cherry, who's a detective. Yes, that is his name for some reason, is Cherry. And Christian. So Cherry and Kristen are your new characters that are replacing Karen and Foggy. And I don't know why. It's weird the way they did that. Now, again, the good is definitely the acting and stuff. That's pretty much it so far for the first 2 episodes, because the bad is okay, as we mentioned. Now, the downright ugliest would be a part of that would be the killing of Foggy, just to replace those characters and the removal of Karen. The bad is the absolute train wreck of the story they're putting around Kingpin. Yes, you've seen in the trailers, and we know by the end of Echo is, of course, he's running for mayor of New York. Yes, he does that. Problem is, what they've done with this whole storyline is they've made him Trump. And no, it's not like, oh, you could take it as, is this meant to be? It's flat out he's meant to be Trump. And it's insane, because he literally almost says the line of, make New York great again. He doesn't go that far. He changes it to give New York a better future, which you could see was probably written as make New York great again. And then there's other people saying for his campaign certain words for him winning and stuff, which very Trump slogans. And you're kind of like, oh. Then you even get his supporters, who it goes back and forth. You have 50% of the people love him and 50% hate him. And you have his supporters running in the streets, celebrating, cheering for Fisk, which is also where you kind of get the F-bombs. And it's true, Matt Murdock, he's standing kind of close by and he's using his senses and he hears all of them. And his supporters instantly just start breaking out into fights with other people. And it's like, wow, you're really going for this whole QAnon type of style crap. And it's insane. Again, the performance of Vincent D'Onofrio is great, but the storyline they're giving him so far is terrible. Especially when it comes to Vanessa. He's basically cooked by his wife. Literally. She's taken over the business until he walks in and pretty much shuts it down. She's having an affair against him, and the second episode with him and her ends with them, believe it or not, Kingpin going to couples therapy. Yeah. Okay. But that's the bad stuff with Vincent D'Onofrio. Performance-wise, great. Story-wise, bad. There's also the bad part of the story completely, which I'll go back to now in a second. But we also keep getting these weird kind of, they're like these on the street level interviews. And the screen goes like it's on VHS, which is weird. You think of all the HD technology today, 8K upwards, and we get these weird VHS style looking videos from the BB files, or the BB report. Now, this is a new character called BB Urge, and she's not all that great. We've only met her like face to face once, but she does these on the street, and it's all about like Fisk. Oh, what do you think of him? And people going, oh, he's going to do great for the city and stuff. Those things, when they happen, they're weird and they're terrible. It's just like stupid. I didn't like those jokes at all. They were actually the worst parts for me. Was like those little report things that pop up every now and again. Then the other bad thing is they've taken Matt Murdock out of Hell's Kitchen. He's no longer in Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, that's right. Daredevil is no longer in Hell's Kitchen. And it's like, why would you do that? And Karen isn't even in Hell's Kitchen. She's moved to San Francisco. That's how they've gotten rid of her in the show. Now, we have to go into, by the way, Kingpin's not in Hell's Kitchen anymore either. This brings us into the downright ugly, because we are into the downright ugly. The first thing is the CGI at the beginning, because I don't know what they did, but when Daredevil suits up and he starts jumping up buildings like he's Batman. It looks terrible. You're like, oh, this looks bad. How does this look this bad? And then he ends up in this fight with Bullseye. And I swear to God, I don't know how they did it, but neither one of them in this fight look real. Everything around them you can see is real. People actually ducking and diving and stuff, but they do not look real. And you're like, oh, why does this look terrible? But then they get into a stairway and out in the landing and stuff, and that looks perfect because it's actually them fighting. You know, Bullseye, he's tired, he's beaten, he's walking upstairs like he's struggling to go upstairs. Daredevil's coming up behind him. He's filled with knives because Bullseye just keeps firing knives at him and stabbing him. And they start having more of the fight on the landing. And that looks great because that's actually them. But then they get out onto the rooftop and it just falls apart again. It becomes this CGI gobbledygook mess. And you're like, good God, what is happening here? While they're fighting, Matt is hearing Foggy's heartbeat stop. And then he just loses it. He like literally screams at Bullseye. He's like, why did you do that? And Bullseye just laughs at him and he throws Bullseye off the roof. And he splatters on the road. No, he's not dead. I don't know how he's not dead, but he's not dead. He just splatters on the road. And then he opens his eyes and he's alive. And here is where this also gets really ugly. By the way, this is the reason he has stopped being Daredevil. Is because he tried to kill Bullseye. And the loss of Foggy. Realizing he's putting the people he loves in danger. This is where the real, also the downright ugly comes, is rather than building on the emotional impact of losing Foggy and that he basically tried to kill Bullseye by throwing him off the roof, they don't go into that at all. In fact, it skips an entire year ahead. It goes him crying on the rooftop. Cherry finds out he's Matt Murdock, that Daredevil's Matt Murdock. He walks out as he takes the mask off and he's like, Matt? And then it jumps to 1 year later and you're like, oh, you're just gonna glaze over the loss of Foggy and stuff like that. It's just like, the hell with dealing with that storyline. And that's where, once it skips, you find out, oh, Karen has moved to San Francisco and Bullseye's still alive. He's going to prison without parole for life and stuff. By the way, from being thrown off a roof, all he has is a scratch on his face, and not even on the side that he splattered on the ground. It's like, okay, that's all within the first 15 minutes of the first episode. So that's the real downright ugly, is the special effects and the skipping of the whole emotional impact and aftermath of the loss of Foggy. Other than that, like, it's shot very well. This would be part of the good as well, is that it is shot very well. You know, it looks good. The camera angles, they do a transition at the very opening of the skyline of New York into the street level of New York. And the way it's done is, like, fantastic. I loved that transition. It was like, that was really well done. There is a story revolving around White Tiger, but I won't spoil any of that. The only other issue I think at the moment is their lack of understanding of what Daredevil's powers are. Oh, by the way, the other part of the downright ugly is he's not in the suit and there's no action at all in these two episodes, except for the first 10 minutes of the first episode and the last 2 minutes of the second episode. But he's not in the suit. After that first 10 minutes of the opening scene in the first episode, he's no longer in the suit. So it looks like the rumors and stories that we've heard is true, that he's not going to be back in the suit until the end of this show, or I have heard that. So keep that in mind. It's shot very well, as we said, and stuff like that. But it is an incredibly slow burn. It really is. And this is the thing. We've heard that the first 4 episodes is like meant to be told, oh, look, these are going to be hard to get through, but trust us, stick with it. Now, I've heard mixed reactions to people who've seen all 9 episodes, where they're saying it's good in some, it's really bad in others, and it's all the way through that way. I think this is a colossal mistake to do it this way, of trying to convince people, oh, look, it's a slow burn, but stick with it until this episode, because a lot of people usually go, I'm giving this thing 3 to 4 episodes, and if you don't catch me by then, I'm done. And if people are watching this and get to like episode 4 and he's still not back in the suit or anything like that, and it's still just people sitting around talking, really, they're gonna go, I'm out. And that's a dumb idea for this. So I don't know whether it does pick up or not at the moment. I've seen mixed reactions to the first 2 episodes. I've seen people who love it, I've seen people who find it just to be meh, and I've seen people who've outright hated it and think it's terrible. We do, by the way, get a mention of Echo and Spider-Man. Now, the Echo they shouldn't have done. This is in the first episode. It's a scene we've seen in the trailer, which is Kingpin in the diner with the conversation with Matt Murdock. That's probably the best scene out of the 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes anyways. Their interaction with each other. Fantastic acting in that scene. But Kingpin asks Matt Murdock, like, have you got any children? And he's like, no, you? And he said, no, I did try and mentor someone before, but it didn't go well. And Matt responds by saying, didn't she shoot you in the face? And he makes the comment of, the new generation, you know, they're hard to teach and stuff like that. That's the mention of Echo. So they don't mention her by name, but they do mention her. And then in Kingpin, when he wins the election, which, by the way, happens in a nanosecond. It's like, one scene, right, I'm running for mayor. Next scene, hey, he's won the election. It's like, oh, you're just going to skip over all that as well. So he seems to have won the election in a night. It's weird. But he wants to outlaw vigilantism, and he drops the names off. There's no longer needs for men with white skulls on their chest. So he's referencing Punisher. Men dressed as spiders. So he's directly talking about Spider-Man. And then he says guys with devil horns, i.e. Daredevil. So that's your 2 mentions of Spider-Man and Echo. I don't know why they did the Echo one. They shouldn't have. And that is the other issue, is when you see Matt Murdock and you see Kingpin, you can't help but go, oh, there's the guy who did the walk of shame, and there's one who was beaten by having fingers placed on his head. Yeah. So overall, for me, at the moment, the first 2 episodes, for me, the show is a meh. It's definitely the best shot Marvel project they have done on Disney Plus. Unfortunately, I think this is going to fall into the category of an Andor, where the acting is on point, it looks good, you know, the style is good and blah blah blah, but no one's going to be invested, and the story is just not particularly there. So overall, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. Like, share, subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you've seen the first 2 episodes, what do you think of them. And with that, cheers, and I'll catch you in the next.